Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
You find yourself in a tavern.
Yo, we should have checked for traps.
I knew he forgot something.
I think I can reason with him.
You killed his father.
Can I have sex with it?
You could certainly try.
I'm gonna touch a sword.
Don't touch the sword!
The child is evil, right?
Obviously.
I could cast Fireball.
Always cast fireball.
All right, roll for it. Welcome to Friday Night Quests. I'm your host and Dungeon Master, Jay Jones. You're listening to our special Aftermath episode for our adventure with Jimmy Wong, from Video Game High School and Feast of Fiction. First, we'll sit down with the cast and get their reactions to the season. Then I'll sit down with the producers and talk about the design of this adventure. Oh, and a quick note before we go any further. In the talk with the producers, Mike talks about possibly using counterspell wrong in the final fight with Alaric, specifically using it too many times in one turn. And it turns out he's wrong. We didn't break that rule. He did misuse counterspell in the episode before because Alaric was invisible when he tried to cast a spell, and you technically need to be able to see your target when you cast counterspell. But whatever. It's just a game. It's not a big deal, or magic, or deciding if Alaric would have killed all of them or not, nothing like that. Anyways, without further ado, let's get on to our conversation with the cast. That's it, guys. That's our adventure.
Hey!
You guys killed a wizard and put him in a trash can. And you guys also fought an entire city of Githyanki people. And Sweeney died again.
As I do.
Kind of his thing.
That's our tradition.
It's a living.
Every adventure, Sweeney dies.
That's our tradition.
I'm the new Rory Williams.
Oh, God.
It was a good reset.
Well, good job, guys. So, Jimmy, thanks for coming on and playing on the show with us.
If you guys didn't know, you guys wake up the next morning after a long rest, and I'm gone, and I've taken 2,000 gold.
2,000 of the 3,500?
Hey,
that I lent.
Yes,
Yes,
no,
true.
that's
15 for each for total, so we should get 500.
Yeah,
That's very honorable. You took
sweet.
only exactly the amount you got back.
Yeah.
Very nice of you,
I left a poo-poo in the downstairs, just as it's my thing.
That's how it works.
To remember,
Yeah, to remember
him
me by.
by.
Yeah.
An upper decker, though.
Yeah, exactly. And more specifically, if Sylvia, or whatever your Wolverine's name is,
Gloria,
if she ever wants to find me again, can just give a little sniffle of that, and I'll be around the corner,
That's,
gross.
That's amazing.
somewhere.
Because he always smells like poop.
Precisely.
Gross.
the best way to get a sense of your targets.
Yeah.
Just poop.
That's a little poo-poo.
Hey guys, I'm willing to bet that when Jay designed that adventure, he didn't mean for us to just slam through the city.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. I didn't expect that to happen at all.
Oh, so you were gonna kill us? With
No.
like a bajillion
I very
people.
much was like, okay, they're going to come upon this city of probably a lot of enemies, and they're obviously going to think to themselves, how will we sneakily and stealthily move through the city without getting detected?
That's not how
and
we do
convince these two well-trained warriors guarding this color pool to let them through. I'm
About-
very interested to see how this happens.
About halfway through, I realized that I could have cast Seeming then, made us look like Genasi, or no,
Githyanki.
Yankee, yeah.
but I didn't do that at the beginning.
And then when you were like, no, I just land on the end, just right there on the edge of the city, I'm like, well, this is going to happen now. It's you versus an
It
entire
almost
city,
killed us.
I guess.
It almost killed all of us.
Yeah.
It
Almost
did
killed
kill
all of
one of
you.
us.
Oh, it
It
did
did.
kill one of us.
Yeah.
All right, so next time, I'm bringing character sheets for each race.
Clearly.
I'm gonna have to.
So
You never
apparently
know.
you dying is a regular occurrence.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so nervous when you were down to
Oh my God.
One hit point.
Horace.
Well, that's the thing, because you
hit
guys had
point.
already gone through the color pool, so you couldn't go back
Yeah.
unless you flew back up
Yeah.
into it.
Which, as an eagle, you could have.
No.
But she wouldn't have known, that's the thing.
that.
She wouldn't have known. You guys
We
just
were
would've been-
falling through the air.
Sweeney would have been dead, and Horace would have been probably dead as well.
Oh my gosh, we would have had to
That was
continue.
too close.
That was too.
That was too
close.
No, that was not cool. Not cool.
Jimmy, you've played D&D before, right?
Yes.
What have you ever had a character die before?
No. Everyone always doesn't miss their saving throws. Like they're like, all right, cool. Like
Unlike Mike here, who missed three in a row.
It's not. Yeah, usually it's like a 3-turn timer. It's like more. That's more like 8-turn timer. You know, like finish the thing in 8 turns. You can get there, and then someone will heal them up or whatever. But yeah, I've never had anyone actually die and get resurrected
in the same adventure.
in the same adventure. Yeah, it was pretty intense.
So you never, not even yourself or nobody in your group, you've ever seen a player character die?
Yeah, I mean, I played a little bit. I'm sure if I played more, it would have happened more often. We've all come very, very close to dying, though. I mean, that was the thrill of it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. D&D, you don't really ever die.
Except on this
Except
show.
on
Velvet
this
League
show.
die.
Apparently it's happened twice.
Yeah.
2 seasons in a row.
We waltz with death over here.
Apparently.
My favorite part is that, and we'll see what's changed by the time the episode actually lands, but as of this recording, I've killed 3 player characters in my games in the last 3 months, and that's the first time I've ever killed players. Like, I deserved this.
I killed you twice in 2 back-to-back adventures.
Yeah.
This is also on this show. First time I've ever killed a character as well.
Well, it's funny because I thought, like, I was thinking, like, oh, what I could do is like a dimension door just like above the pool and just fall through. And I was like, well, but I don't know what's on the other side. And then I'd be leaving the group. And then you just dove through and I was like unconscious. I was like, all right, well, I guess that would have been the best way to do it. But I wouldn't have had I would have just been falling through oblivion.
Yeah.
I probably still would have died.
You'd be on,
So,
yeah.
Horace, would you like to know where you were going to be banished to if banishment had
Yes.
gotten off by Alaric?
Yeah.
He was going to send you back to the astral plane, back to that Githyanki city.
Oh my god.
well, you could have come back to us.
Now, here's the thing. It is a concentration spell.
Yeah.
So as soon as you would have taken damage and failed it, you would have been popped right back into the room.
However, if he maintains it for a minute, 10 rounds, it's permanent.
It's permanent. You're just there.
Now-
Which means you would have had to fight your way back through.
To the color.
No, they're just having the funeral for all the people we murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back.
It's like, oh, hey, it's me again.
They're just terrified of you.
Except now you look like a villager because you said seeming on.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a guy with a rake.
They're,
You just start slashing through a
Horace
funeral
and
party.
the talking rake.
yeah, you're just a commoner with a
Oh
rake.
God!
This adventure was called Horace and the Talking Rake.
Yeah, it's a good name. And Jimmy, what's the character that you typically prefer when you play D&D? Like I would say class type.
I do like doing anything that can throw stuff from afar. Counterspell, as we saw, is obviously absurdly powerful against specific bosses. But yeah, I like that or sort of any assassin-y types, in the shadows. I have a newfound love for druid. It was kind of cool. We had, we pulled the Deus Ex Machina of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
we did.
Eagles.
with the Eagles.
We got the
That's
Eagles
right.
in
The
there,
Sailor
yeah.
Scout Eagles.
I don't know how we would have all survived. How would we have survived that fall, you
Oh,
guys?
there's no way. I would have
We were gonna
crunched.
die.
Yeah,
I have 68 hit points at max. I would have taken so much damage.
We
Yeah.
would have died.
How high up were we? We were high.
You guys were
Hundreds
like
of
hundreds and hundreds of feet.
It's
Yeah.
like 20d6
Oh
or
my-
something like that.
20d6 damage is the maximum you can take, I believe.
Oh my
and
god.
yeah, and that's what would have happened if you guys had hit the ground. So really,
Not
though,
how I wanted to go.
at a certain point,
That would
though,
fill our box.
like at a certain point, what's amazing about that is like if you're like a barbarian or like a super tank character, you can just be dropped from any height and like live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Surprisingly.
so what's the maximum
It was
amount?
120.
Is 120. And so if I'm 104, it's very unlikely.
So very soon you can just jump off of shit
Yeah.
and be alive.
but not at the end of a battle where you have one
That's
hit
true.
point.
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
you
could
had one hit point.
Where I
You were
literally just
unconscious,
face
and we
first.
were like 2, 3 from the
Yeah,
ground.
I had like
It was
20 points away.
scary.
I was just sitting there being like, well, if we jump through, like, they'll just follow us. And then you guys jump through. I was like, I guess they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to know that it's just a drop to
Yeah, if they
oblivion on
stick
the
their
other side.
face through, they're like, no, we shouldn't do that.
It reminds me to always take Featherfall.
Yeah.
It's crazy that Sweeney still doesn't know Featherfall. That's the dumbest thing I've ever
See,
done.
I actively do not know what most of you guys have as far as powers, and I was thinking to
Right.
myself, I was like, I'm pretty sure they all have like Featherfall.
Nope.
Guess I was wrong.
We have eagle.
It was very interesting to see how that played out, and thank God you could turn into an eagle and/or summon bunches
Yeah.
of
Summon
eagles.
all to eagles.
I think I'm probably just gonna learn Featherfall and fly next time.
Yeah.
This is like the boat episode when I got paranoid, and now I'm like, I need to know how to breathe underwater. I need to know how to walk underwater. Like, well, I need to know all the water things.
Flying is my new thing.
And now
Yeah.
it's flying. Great.
I mean, Sweeney has a traumatic fall in his background where he took damage from falling off
That's
a building.
true.
Like, it's crazy he doesn't
should
know
learn-
Featherfall.
Yeah.
Maybe he's afraid of it. It's like a phobia.
Well, now he's gonna address
heights.
it.
Heights.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
All
hey,
right.
and hey, before we leave today, I'd like to address you, Jimmy. You have a really great YouTube channel called Feast of Fiction.
Yeah.
What's and on there you guys cook and make fictional foods, right? From like different games or pop culture or movies and things like that.
Yeah, we've been doing it for 5 years now. We release a video 3 times a month, and we've covered pretty much every fictional food there is.
Really?
Like we do animes now. We're doing really obscure stuff.
Is it becoming hard to be like, what is
Not
left?
really, because everyone posts extremely helpful comments, and every time I read it, I'm like, wow, I had no idea this or this or this or whatever. There's tons of things that exist. I'm like, cool, great.
So can you give some examples of like what sort of foods there are?
So Harry Potter butterbeer is like the number one thing that I tell most people. Like there's lembas bread from Lord of the Rings.
Is the butterbeer, is this the type of butterbeer? Like, is this like actual canonically how butterbeer would be? Or is this even close to like the Universal's butterbeer?
It's kind of a mix between the two, because back in the day, I guess they would just put butter in a pan or in a pot and then cook it and like pour liquid in and just make this weird, gross concoction, because it came from somewhere. But yeah, ours is more just like, all right, let's make this sweet butterscotchy and like a milkshake or whatever. You know, just something that you can digest as a human.
that's probably a
I
requirement.
mean, we're
for-
muggles. We only
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
Most of
we
the
don't
food
know.
is based off of real stuff too. Like the Portal cake from Portal is just a Black Forest cake.
Awesome.
So you just gotta teach people how to make pretty simple stuff at the end of the day. But
Were you really good at cooking before you started the channel?
No, I
or
was
were you like
awful.
learning as you went?
learning as I went, you can definitely tell with the early episodes that like they're very like just thrown together recipes that aren't like perfect. And as time has progressed, it's gotten much better. I actually started the show because I wanted to learn how to be a better cook.
Oh, awesome.
So it worked out.
great.
What's been your favorite thing that you've cooked on the show?
We made Krabby Patties from
awesome.
SpongeBob SquarePants, and those were really tasty because it's just like crab cake, in a burger.
Ooh.
That
Yeah,
sounds
sounds
pretty
nice.
delicious.
Do you
Yeah.
have any D&D recipes?
Ooh.
Not yet. I can't really. I mean, it's kind of. I
Kinda-
guess you'd have to go into the official lore to find something that a lot of people know about, but I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure we could do something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think myself. if
Oh,
there's
good
any-
berries.
Oh yeah,
Goodberry.
good berry is a
Good
spell.
berries.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Goodberries are
Isn't that
good.
just they're just berries? But
No, but they have a very particular.
They boost you.
They have a very particular like taste and.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could probably like marinate it in
you could do
something.
healing potions.
Good berry jam?
Good
Yeah.
berry. Home with a good berry. Can I take your order?
Well, Jimmy, thanks for coming in
Thanks,
and
Jimmy.
playing
Thanks
with
for
us.
having me, guys. Much appreciated.
Bye,
Hooray.
everybody.
Thank you for knowing counterspell.
Yeah. By the way, that last fight was way different than I thought it would go with 2 people with counterspell. So I was like, well, if he counterspells, I'll just counterspell the counterspell and the spell will go off. But it was like, counterspell. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do anything in this fight.
Yeah.
You're a worm.
Being someone that plays Magic, that was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So close to doing time stop. That would have been really fun.
Yeah, right?
So close.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, welcome to the aftermath for season 10. Jay Jones, the dungeon master, sitting here.
Hey, everybody.
Niels-Christian, a fellow executive producer, sitting here.
Hi.
Once again, Andrew Dickinger missed a pretty key session. He actually, by the time when we recorded this, he hadn't heard episode 50 yet. So
We were like, you don't want to.
yeah, it was like
we
you-
have a lot of things to
it
talk
was like
about in this one.
Well, it was like you probably shouldn't come to season 10 because you will be very confused and like spoiled
Yeah.
for like the whole resurrection thing. So I think actually 49 aired like the night before we recorded.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hadn't happened yet. So this was an interesting season as well. So there's an elephant in the room, and I know we'll get there. I mean,
Is it the same elephant that just won't leave?
yeah, it's the same elephant. We'll talk about a lot of things, guys. We'll talk about Jimmy and how great he was. We'll talk about Alaric. We'll talk about the arcs.
We have a lot. This season has a lot of stuff to
There's a lot to unpack. Sweeney died again.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I think we should
ridiculous.
actually backtrack a little earlier because we went to the astral plane. We went to this camp of theirs, and we just fucked ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
It was still probably one of the most awesome fights that I've seen. Like that action sequence of everyone trying to jump through that portal.
It was exciting,
It was so exciting.
but it was very clear that we all had different objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely say if this was like a show, it would have been our like highest budget fight that Friday Night Quest had. where you guys fought an entire city
And then Para dropped.
and then dropped out of the sky.
That was my favorite part. Was falling through and being like, what the fuck? This was the challenge. Like, we made more work for ourselves.
Oh yeah. So yeah. Oh my God. Your decision. The decisions of how you guys approached that objective was just not. Again, didn't expect that to happen.
The other thing, you made the decision to just go in and fight them, which turned out bad. And then, as it got worse, more decisions were made that made things even more dire.
People just started leaving.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get to that in a second.
Well, let's talk about it right now, because
Sure.
this is what we're talking about. I mean, we'll talk about our terrific guest, Jimmy. We'll talk about all that stuff. But, like, we should just talk about, because it's what people came here to hear about, the death.
Yep. Sweeney's second death.
So let's figure out. So, as a player, I'm looking at this challenge that you set up and what you had versus what happened in the situation. Start with this several 100-foot drop through a portal.
Yep.
So that's a challenge.
Yep.
Above that, we have these 2 guards, and they were going to be there, and that was going to be challenging to get past them. One way or another.
And they were very well skilled. They were going to be challenging warriors.
You could tell that they had skills and they had
abilities beyond what the regular ones had.
Yes. Then you have, outside of that, the tents and some guards adjacent. So you have to get past them, presumably. Then you have a whole city of just people. Like, and if we can get through that without raising suspicion, or just land there and go through, it's a little more doable, potentially. You don't have them rallying and following us quite in the same way. And then when we land on the outside, you have all of that just sitting in a line.
Yep.
Not the way you intended, I'm willing to bet.
No, did not bet that you guys would just go through all of it.
It was a throwback to the last campaign, the one before we were recording, where we played the 4 Feathers. That was our
Yes.
group, and that was just how we would approach situations. We would just blunder into them.
There was a campaign that I ran called the 4 Feathers with Niels, Mike, our good friend Sandra, and Andrew were part of. It was an adventure that you guys solved every problem with, well, we'll just announce ourselves and kick our way into every door ever.
Yeah, not always violently. We just like walk in and be like, "Hello, we're here. We're the 4 Feathers." Like,
There was no
how are
stealth
you?
rolls in that entire game, ever.
Yeah, that feels about right. It was that, basically. Again, looking at my spell sheet once I was dead and being like, "Oh, seeming. I could have made us look like Gith."
I mean, so many things you guys could have done. The fact that it was like, we will land on the very far outskirts of the city. Not like, even if you were going to go balls to the wall, just directly into the center area, that might have worked. Even though, like, you would have still aroused several suspicion on the way in.
Yeah.
But the fact that I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, with this challenge set up in front of them, how do they plan to sneak through this city? How will they trick the guards, or how will they talk their way through the guards? Will they try to have, like, a negotiation with them? Well, all these different things.
Magic cake again. Yeah.
There was definitely a thing set up with Jimmy being a Dragonborn. They have deals with, as we found out in the adventure, these people, this Githyanki, have dealings with Tiamat and dealings with red dragons and often ride them. So I was like, there might be something there with Jimmy's character. Many, many options. And you guys chose the option to...
The path of most resistance.
Yeah, to land, basically announce yourselves to an entire city of astral plane warriors and fight your way all the way to the center.
It's going to be a learning moment for the Velvet League, I feel like, because at the very least, Sweeney's going to have a conversation with everybody in the next session.
Yeah, guys... Talk about our tactics.
Hey, Druid, you're the healer.
Let's talk about that for a moment.
The first one out the door.
This happened in season 9, but it was a little more tricky in season 9 because you guys were in a fight with the first time Sweeney ever died. You guys were in a fight with assassins.
I'm just laughing at the first time.
Yeah, just the first time he has ever died.
I will be our Rory Williams.
Fighting assassins and then fighting a hobgoblin warlord. And even in that fight...
It was a deadly fight.
It was a deadly fight. And a lot of people were really low in health by the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a lot trickier to help each other. It
Yes.
could be possible, but still very difficult.
It was designed as a very challenging encounter.
Right. While in this one, it seemed like people were actively avoiding helping each other.
We had different objectives than each other, I feel like.
Yeah, it was definitely chaotic.
I believe like there was a bear that just tried to run straight through a city into a portal. Successfully did do it.
Until they got telekinetically...
Here's the thing. In Izzy's mind, she was like, well, the goal is to get through this color pool, so I'm just going to go straight to it and then into said color pool.
Yeah. I just need to remind her that she's the healer.
Yep.
because I died.
And you're the only person with like healing potions. Nobody else ever goes around and just pours healing potions on people.
And the thing I was thinking about is like, oh, I could just dimension door over the portal and drop through. But then like, well, I'll leave everyone here. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And then I got killed because I stayed behind and helped.
The funny part is, even though she left first to run towards the color pool, then everyone else made it there. And then you still went unconscious, and then she jumped through with Jimmy into the pool.
Jimmy, I think, followed right after. No,
he pulled her.
He pulled her. That's right.
Then I was like, well, at least you got Horace. And then Horace is like at 1 health. And I was like, oh, no.
Well, the thing is,
Oh, no.
during that fight, there was a very real moment where I think because of Season 9, because you guys had reincarnation and kind of played around with it so much, I mean, Izzy at the end of the adventure brought 3 other people back that were just in the village. Because of Season 9 being like, oh, we've got reincarnation, like, we're totally fine. It was very interesting because of how that fight ended up. If Horace had died in that room, if Horace had gone down and died himself in that room, Izzy was already out into the village with Jimmy. She wasn't going to be able to get back up there.
Nope.
And you and Horace would have just permanently died with no bodies available to reincarnate.
Yep.
So it goes to show that even if you have things like this that are in some ways not game-breaking, but they're, a little bit of...
They're our response to the heightening danger in the world around us.
Exactly.
Now that we're higher levels, we fight deadlier challenges, and our powers are growing accordingly.
But the thing is, even a power like that has its limits.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that you still have to work strategically as a team, or you won't have any bodies to reincarnate. And we might have not only lost Sweeney in that fight, but we might have lost Horace as well.
Yeah.
And it would have just been Izzy remaining.
And Jimmy for that one session, for the session. And then it would have just been like, all right, well, Jeremy and Mike just take a seat next to Nick and just like watch it play out.
Yep.
I think that's what we have to do if someone permanently dies. Is like we just have to like sit aside and be like, keep playing, guys.
Keep playing. Do fight Alaric by yourself. Enjoy. But
let's talk a little bit about Jimmy as a guest. He was fantastic.
He was amazing.
He was a delight, and he's one of the few guests we've had who's familiar with 5th edition. But he was a lot of fun to have on the show, and he was. It was really funny because he was another outlander, exile, only one of his race, like immediately after Matt. Mm-hmm. And it was really funny that like I think even Matt said he was considering a sorcerer or something like that. I don't remember, but it was just like, oh, what a funny little coincidence that we have.
It must be in the air. Sorcerers are hot right now.
Or the outlanders, but like 2 of them in a row, 2 very different characters.
Yes,
wildly different interpretations of someone who grew up without a lot of people in their lives. And he was just a blast to have on the show, and it's fun. The funny thing is that once you're level 11, which our characters are in season 10, new characters start with magic items. That's a new thing that happens as of season 10, as of level 11. And we gave him a list of options of like, hey, here's some of the items you have options for. You can choose, and he chose independently without consulting us, which is really fun. He chose the thing that protects him from scrying, which is exactly what we needed in that moment. And the Eyes of Charming, which I thought made him a really interesting counterbalance interesting parallel to Alaric himself. Yeah. Which was just the most random.
Completely accidental.
Just like, oh, what an interesting... unless he's been listening to the show, but like even then we hadn't really gotten to Alaric by that point.
We haven't really fully explored that character as much as we did in this season.
Or even in the episodes that hadn't aired yet, that, wouldn't have been any chance for him to listen to.
That's true.
The counterspells with 2 magic users.
And the fact that he chose counterspell saved our saved our
my God.
bacon. Now, let's talk about that. I am willing to bet. I haven't gone back and edited the season yet. We're recording this a little earlier than we usually do. I haven't edited it yet, so I'm willing to bet there's at least a couple times when I do accidentally use counterspell twice in one turn, which you're not supposed to do.
I was trying to keep track of that, but there was so much of it going around. I'm like, did they use the reaction already? I don't know.
And the problem was...
This was like Harry Potter Wizards duels of like counterspell.
But we had 2 people who could counterspell, so it started getting the rhythm of like, one of us is going to do it and the other one is going to pick up the slack if I can't, so I think I think if anyone did, it was me probably early in the thing. But it's like, when you're in that moment, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit because we did a little metagaming there, and we did a little metagaming, or not, almost like pushback against the DM. We did it there. We specifically did it with telekinesis. When we were like, why didn't she just fall? Why would she fall? Why wouldn't she just fly around in the air? And the reason for that is that we were terrified. And that's the reason that I'm putting this out there as just general DM advice. If you're getting pushback from your players, it's for a couple of reasons. And whether this is because they're metagaming, or it's because they're power gaming, or whatever, or they're just trying to assign logic to something that they want to figure out, it's usually because they're afraid of something happening. They're either afraid of being denied something cool, they're afraid of internet comments, which is why I try to be as up on the rules as I can be.
Right.
Or it's because they're afraid of dying.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was.
Or they're afraid of missing a cool character moment.
That's what I mean, exactly. It's like, if I want to do something really badass, and you're like, all right, well, the DC is 25. I'm like, well, I can't do that.
But I want to do the badass flip thing.
It's because you want to make sure that you're not being denied something cool. In the case of the counterspell, it's just plain forgetfulness and mixed with the genuine terror of, oh my god, look at the powers he has. Look at all these things that he has on his person.
Because, yeah, it was to be like the first time the Velvet League really encountered, like, Alaric is, if he got any of those spells off, he is a wizard of high power. Like, he can stop time, he can throw you into different planes of existence, he can do all the things that you guys have had the wonderful joy of doing to other enemies, but, like, at a crazier, higher level of doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, with 2 counterspells, boy, does that shut down wizards.
Yeah. If we didn't have 2 spellcasters who both knew counterspell, that's the crazy thing.
And you guys were getting really good rolls because he was casting them at a higher level that you could normally counterspell, but you were getting really good rolls to still stop it.
I remember one moment when I knew you were about to use time stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, it's a 9th level spell. And they're like, counterspell. I'm like, you're not going to be able to get this. And they fail because they didn't cast it at level 9 because they couldn't. But then the roll was like more than high enough. It was like,
Because you needed a 19 because it's 9 plus 10.
Yeah.
And they freaking got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
I know. My face was just like, oh damn. I thought that was going to be so cool. Didn't work.
I mean, it was cool for us because we were just
I'm
like,
sure.
And my favorite thing is that counterspell, the only components are somatic. So it's not verbal, you don't say anything, and it's not material. You don't need to pull out a dead firefly. You just wave your hand, and the spell doesn't happen. So I just picture us like chopping the air and be like, nope, or like doing a little zip it motion. Like that's what I imagine. It's just like us like just waving our hand and shooing these spells away, which makes us feel very powerful and able to gang up on him.
I mean, even though you guys counterspelled so much, it was cool imagining just this like epic wizard duel fight where he's just like trying to hit both you guys, and both of you are just blocking all the spells constantly
and using counterspell back on us, which I think is probably what messed us up in terms of maybe using it too many times in a turn. Because
Potentially.
We were trying to counterspell.
I was trying to keep in mind of
you.
using a once reaction each time it came back around.
I think you think you were better about it than I was. I'm just putting that out there.
And I mean, it was fun, and there were definitely some moments at the end of the fight that I wanted to award the the ingenuity of it, like when Jimmy threw the lightning bolt, the chain lightning, and it bounced off, and it was at the time Alaric was trying to get these potions back, and he had an alchemical setup down there, which was basically, he was going to have some powerful potions to rejuvenate himself or to give himself additional powers, and you guys just blew those up with chain lightning because it can hit 3 other things, and it was like, you know what? That was smart. You could have hit him with anything else, but you hit him with something that bounces off of things. And Jimmy, I even think, said like, hey, can I bounce those to the alchemical flasks and things he's got down there? I was like, yeah, of course you can.
They're not going to make their dex saves.
That was smart. I mean, it's interesting, those wizard battles play out very much like a game of chess. Like, it's very much of like when to use this power to stop this power. And me going into this adventure, in my own games of D&D, I play typically a bard or like a cleric, but usually like a battle cleric. I like to play more like swashbuckly type characters that have some magic at their use. But this was the first time I ever really dug in deep to like a wizard character. Yeah. And it is very fun to see, like, they fight much like you would play like a strategic game. Yeah. Because with Alaric in the beginning of that fight, especially since he knew you were coming because of the scrying stone, and of course Jimmy was invisible to that thanks to his awesome random magic item that he picked, which made for a fun thing for him to get like kind of a surprise on Alaric. Yeah. It was fun for me to be able to give Alaric a chance to set up what is essentially, he's setting up chess pieces to take you all down. Obviously, he created an image down there of himself at the table, which you fell for with your disintegrate. I was about to say that I burned my 7th level spell, 6th level spell, whatever the highest level I have. And as soon as you fired at him, I was like, oh, Sweeney, no. You're going to burn that. I fell for an illusion spell. Which was still fun for his character because he probably taught Sweeney those spells. Yeah. Yeah, and no, the irony was not lost on me at all. And I mean, he got to start the round with his many images. He got to start with stone skin and mage armor and all these different things to give himself protection against a very powerful team. You guys are nothing to to obviously
to balk at.
But the fact that he couldn't get any of his powerful
and that
spells off.
Horace managed to get rid of all the minor illusion or all the mirror images.
Oh yeah, all 3 attacks took down every single one.
Surge. No, it wasn't the 3 attacks. It was 6 attacks.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because he hit him a couple times. And the ones he didn't hit, the ones that rather were interfered with by the mirror images, took out a mirror image.
Yeah.
So because we had him burn his action surge on his first turn, it made him easier to hit going forward.
Like looking back on it, you guys basically tackled that encounter perfectly. I mean, Horace went up and immediately removed his bigger defenses right out the way, which would have blocked some of your more dangerous spells. And then from there, with all the counterspelling and just neutralizing all of his spells, you brought him down pretty hard.
Because I barely ever did damage to him because it was just I was burning all of my high-level spell slots on counterspell, not knowing what spells he was casting. Being like, all right, well, hope it's a 5th level. Oh, it was higher. I got to roll. Oh, I made it. Oh, it's a 4th level. Oh, I made it. And I saved spell slots for counterspell reasons. And then we had him.
Yeah.
we turned him into a caterpillar. Brought him home.
Yeah, and I had some bad rolls there too because that type of character has advantage on saving throws against spells and stuff, and I just couldn't get it. And when Izzy turned him into a caterpillar, I was like, yeah, he's a caterpillar.
Yeah, and we took him home and we
put him in a nice little jar with some sticks and twigs.
And we had just enough time to get home and let him out at our fake house and just obliterated him.
Yeah, destroyed him. Turned him into paste, basically.
Yeah.
And put him in a trash can.
Yeah, turned him into goo. Put him in a trash can, took him to the second. Did not even try to bring him in alive at that point.
No.
Just too dangerous. Yeah, Sweeney we didn't really get a chance to examine it because we were more concerned on just getting it to the second and figuring out what she wanted from him.
Yeah.
But Sweeney's free of that dude.
Yep.
That dude's gone.
And I mean, that's something I know when we were getting to the end of this year. I know, Niels, that was a big thing, you wanted to aim for is to create an arc for Sweeney. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. So, with all the Alaric stuff, and Horace had his arc, kind of, and he's been growing now, getting to know people, and Sweeney, to me, you've always seemed, very distant because you are running from this past, and I wanted, basically, for your character to finally confront and deal with it, and then be free, and now you have to figure out what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
That was my goal.
Because it was funny, giving you guys the material of, hey, I was raised by this guy, Alaric Levant, he's this horrible human being, and just sort of not knowing what you guys want to do with it. And I'm sure the option was bandied about of having Alaric linger and sort of be more of a presence. But
there was an option around that, but I think, and this was 100% Niels' input, and I think it was a great direction to go, was by putting Alaric in the background like this just haunting ghost, it doesn't let Sweeney really develop.
Yeah.
It kind of still puts him in his past and puts that foot firmly there, and he's always never really being able to attach fully to the Velvet League or to anything new.
Yeah.
He's always just looking behind, and we really wanted to address that, to give him a new direction.
Yeah, and then we have, when Sweeney was a halfling for a week, less than a week, and just, trying to get drunk and trying to get laid and all that stuff, he is a man who thinks he's going to die, when he goes to fight Alaric. He has nothing to live for at that point because he died already, and he's just, wants to keep his friends safe, but, you can see that a little bit as the motions of someone who is preparing for his last stand.
Yeah.
And got it, because he died again.
He died again.
Yep.
And then to actually have that be free, and I think we're not going to see him taking the same behavior now that he's been reborn again. I don't think we're going to see him. I mean, yes, he's a guy who will enjoy a tavern, and yes, he's friendly, frisky, bisexual guy. So we're still going to see him be flirtatious and things, but to see him be throwing himself into just hedonism, I don't think we're going to see much of that this time around, because he's living in a little bit of an altered life now.
Yeah.
And speaking of reincarnation, we should talk about the roles.
Yeah, because something changed this time around with reincarnation. And that was actually a little bit of, it's so funny because we had this conversation right before we were going to record season 10, where, and I think you'd written an article about it on, for the website.
For How We Roll,
For How We Roll.
Because I've killed a lot of...
Because you've killed a lot of people.
I've killed a lot of player characters, and I was about to have some player characters in the Valkyries, my all-girl group, trying to bring a character back to life. Mm-hmm. And we'd left off our game that the three of you, including Andrew, are a part of. The last time we had played, you and Andrew's characters were unconscious, so you were going to be making death saving throws. So it's like, all right, well, there's a chance that like if these characters die, like I need everyone to know how I'm handling resurrection of any kind. And much like many things I do, it is taken just cribbed from Critical Role entirely.
And we talked about it, and I read it in the article, and I did really like it because it is something of a bit of like, you know, if death is really just something you can just be like, you know, whatever, like we'll just, somebody died, who cares, just get me some oils and stuff. And when you're in higher levels, like you have a lot of gold and you have a lot of resources to that type of gold, it no longer becomes, the stakes are no longer high when someone dies. Feels like there's no longer any real payoff or any real, you know, sacrifice essentially. So going forward, the first time you get reincarnated, that's fine. You can do reincarnation as it does in the spell.
Or resurrection, I guess, of any kind.
Or resurrection of any kind. But the second time, especially on the same soul,
in the
same spirit,
week.
In the same week, but even just more or less on the same spirit, essentially, there has to be some repercussions. Or there has to also be essentially some difficulty in doing that.
Some level of risk of failure.
Exactly. And that's why when they were bringing you back, I asked each of them to make an ability check and a skill check, essentially, to coax your spirit back into its body. Because that thread, that line that pulls you back to your body, it's not as strong as it used to be. First off, this is a brand new body.
Yeah.
You've not been wearing this body for long enough.
For 34 years.
And also, the spirit has been touching that ethereal realm too many times to a point where it might start to lose its way back to the mortal plane.
It is part of the reincarnate spell that you have to be willing to come back.
Yeah. Or able.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I think this addresses, is that if they're not able to return, which I think is a possibility, you know?
Yeah.
And I think we have a slightly different mechanic in play. So mine is 3 rolls as well, but then it affects a final DC and the DM makes the final roll.
Right. Mine is a little bit altered.
Yeah.
And it will change depending on who dies or if Sweeney dies again.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It will adjust and get worse and more difficult each time, and the repercussions of you coming back might get worse each time. But it's just because for a DM and for I think anyone that is working within a world that is allowed, resurrection is allowed, you have to have some type of repercussion.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as we saw in this last one, that fight in the crazy city in the astral plane, you know, it was like, oh, if somebody dies, we'll just reincarnate them. It's like, well, we have to learn a little bit from those mistakes, that it might not be that easy and it might not work every single time.
Yeah. And it also feels like when Sweeney first died, it made sense that we had a means to potentially bring him back because we were just blindsided. We failed in season 10. We failed to go through that city in a way that made sense, and we paid the price.
Mm-hmm.
So there had to be some possibility that like we had to live with that mistake,
And
or more accurately, not.
And listeners, there was a very real chance based on their roles that Sweeney was not going to come back.
What was the DC? Are you willing to tell us?
I can tell you. So the DC I had set for that was 15.
Yeah.
And all of you guys just rolled really, really well as like a group and ability check. So you guys beat it. But will that mean it gets higher next time? Very possible.
I would assume so.
So there are repercussions to reincarnation. So it should definitely be said that it's not always going to be we'll just put them in the ground and throw some oil on top of them. It'll be fine.
And assuming that we don't need 3 successes, but we need a majority rules.
Potentially.
I mean, at least for this one.
At least for this one, yes.
It was
that
majority
would be correct.
rules.
It was majority rules.
For next time, it might be DC.
You might need 3 successes,
DC
and it might be
15,
DC higher.
Yeah, that's true.
So you guys grow in power, and the more, I guess, I don't want to say shattered, but the more a spirit has touched that other plane, it's going to be more difficult to pull it back.
The more it's been severed from the mortal world.
Yeah, multiple times at this point.
Twice. That's just a couple more times than you're meant to do.
Yeah, and going forward, this next year, we're really excited. We already have plenty of ideas where we're going to go.
You seem to be teasing a little homecoming for Izzy.
Before we get into that, I want to backtrack to the falling through the portal.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little more.
That was really fun.
That was my favorite. I was dead for it, but it wouldn't have mattered because I couldn't have done anything. I finally learned Featherfall after that encounter. I learned Featherfall and Fly, which are I could learn higher level spells, but I needed Featherfall and Fly.
Probably.
That was just a great such a great encounter, just falling through the air. It was
trying to get eagles to catch you.
Yeah, it became an Iron Man 3 situation of you grab him, you grab her. We just need to
that was my favorite part at the end.
And it was close to becoming a civil war situation.
It was one step away from one of you or two of you hitting the ground.
And taking... How much damage is it? It's
20d6, I believe, is the max for falling.
20d6. I have an app on my phone
Ooh, that can tell us.
that can tell us approximately how much that would be. I'm just going to go ahead and roll a d6 20 times on my phone.
And a lot of you guys were pretty hurt. But
Yeah.
in that fight. I mean, for some of those things as a DM, I have to rule, like, if you guys just go... it wouldn't as much be, like, if you're falling from, like, hundreds or thousands of feet from the air, I'm not just going to be like, well, it's like 30 damage. I might just be like, you're just definitely unconscious, or if you're definitely dead.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you have to pull a little bit of realism in it, just because I don't think the game, Dungeons & Dragons, like, well, obviously we should put a total number up there for, if they happen to fall from the sky, because that'll happen so often.
It does say it's a limit of 20d6.
That's true. It does.
But it's also, it also doesn't apply a resurrection process for, or a ritual rather, like, a skill challenge for bringing someone back to life. But, sometimes you feel like
Sometimes
you need
you got to tweak it a little bit. And I mean, this goes back to what we did in season 7 when we had the boat. When the boat got picked up by the wind and sending you guys hurtling towards that dock. I had made it clear to you guys that if you failed, there wasn't going to be dice rolls. It was going to be people were going to die if you'd hit the dock at full speed. Just because realistically, no matter what level you are or magic items you have, you hit something at such a high speed, you're going to get turned into paste whenever you hit something.
Oh, I rolled the wrong die.
Oh, what'd you roll?
That's a D3. It's a six-sided die on my phone that only has 3 sides.
Oh, what'd you do for D6?
So here we go. Yep, 77.
Yeah, that's really high.
Yeah.
77. That would do the job.
Yeah, that would definitely do it. So, yeah, that's still really high.
I think the only one that could have survived that would be Horace. Wouldn't have insta-died because he has enough health.
Right, because he would have been at 1 hit point. But you know what? Like,
But
it
he
might
still
also
would be
mean...
very, very, very
it might mean a
unconscious.
couple death saving failures.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because you all would have been unconscious, and no one's really going to stabilize you.
Yep.
Yeah, that would have been brutal as hell.
Yeah.
But I love just the sword just falling through the air.
Oh, Doris falling to the
Yeah.
ground before you guys?
Yeah, fuck you, Doris.
See, the idea actually of this adventure was very much, since it's the last of the first year, it was basically when we were writing this, it was much like we're making a Fast 5 version of Friday Night Quests.
Yeah.
Like a heist version,
Yeah,
essentially. Of like, you're going to go to a crazy place, and it's just going to be crazy action scene after action scene until you guys get
I
there.
did forget that Horace critically failed and lost Doris into the pool
Yes!
partway through
he
the
critically
fight.
failed twice.
2 back-to-back natural ones.
Yeah.
So he just tossed Doris through the portal.
And Jeremy, who's a DM on his own time,
Yeah.
is great at coming up on the spot of what those repercussions are going to be. And I thought that was a great of 2 critical failures. Yeah, you lose your magic sword through the portal.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who in season 9, when he rolled the natural 1, he stabbed himself and you rolled the damage. He's like, okay, cool. I mean, that makes sense. And also I'm at 6 hit points now. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, natural ones hurt. You know what I mean? Though I still think our worst natural ones are in season 4.
With all those kids
Yeah.
in that circus tent.
2 kids and a nun.
Oh boy. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, check out season 4. It's insane.
It's the 2nd episode of the season. I don't remember what episode number it is. 19, I think. Yeah, that's it's a fun game. But man, when it goes wrong,
Yeah. Oh,
when
it can
goes
go
wrong
very
on you, it goes real wrong.
And those Eagles were really close to missing a few of you. I was surprised at those rolls.
Yeah, because DC 10 is what you said.
I just needed a DC 10.
Yeah, Izzy failed so many times. That's why you had to start steering the one eagle.
Yeah,
towards
use the
them
strength to steer
other
it.
people could roll and try and grab
Yeah,
on
Horace
you.
could actually try to get people to safety. Yeah, crazy game.
Yeah.
that we play. Yeah, and we didn't really talk that much about Alaric and his whole deal in the town.
Yeah, I mean, Alaric, the town, you guys didn't explore it too much, but I mean, you guys were on a mission.
Yeah.
But you guys could basically, from your conversation with Jonathan, I believe it was, you guys had enough of a gist that this is a town, it is, as you can see it, and it is like a perfect village. It's very well taken care of. There aren't any people walking around with like swords and weapons, obviously, because Alaric probably doesn't want anybody to create some sort of uprising.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it is a perfect town, and Alaric himself has always wanted his own perfect little kingdom. His own. He's always kind of been a bit of a imposter in that realm, and that's why a little bit. And I think Sweeney kind of came to this conclusion a little bit when he was exploring the mansion, that a lot of the rooms, there are tons of rooms in Alaric's estate, but they are just they are a dollhouse.
They're for show,
They're
yeah.
for show. He never sits around in a room and reads these books but he thinks like a royal person would have all these books
Yeah.
and they would have a beautiful dining room.
He doesn't ever have him into the ballroom because of course not.
No,
But
who's he
it's
going to
there.
bring to his table? But he has it there to feel like he is this ruler, this king, essentially, of this little town.
Yeah.
And then there was the fun people room.
Then the people room.
Yeah, the people room, which I think you confided in me afterwards. That could have been an encounter.
That could have been an encounter, yes. But you guys, I mean, you did a great job of washing all of that away. But yeah, I mean, those people were, I thought to myself, like a character like a purple man or a character that can fully dominate, which is one of his powers, or basically make people do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
What is that like when in his own personal space? Like, what is that like to him in his darkest of moments? Like
Yeah.
when he wants absolute control over someone
Dominion.
and dominion on them. And it's not just do these things for me. It's like, what is like the perfect level of embarrassment to a person? And to me, that's to just make them an object. Like, you're not even a person to me anymore in my eyes. You all are just a table for me. You're all
Yeah.
a chair for me to sit on. So, and again, that's the creeping factor of you guys stepping out of what is the dollhouse of what Alaric presents to the world. And in the back is where Alaric really is and who Alaric actually is.
Yeah.
Outside of this facade he has on the town.
It was creepy. He's a creepy dude, and I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah. He's now in a garbage can somewhere.
Yeah, he's pudding.
Yeah. Unfortunately, nobody got to interrogate him or get
Nope.
any evidence about that, so we'll see where that goes.
But we seem to have some idea of what he might have been involved with.
Indeed.
And who might know a little more.
That's true.
We'll see in the upcoming seasons.
Yeah, that was actually, I liked how that played out organically by accident. Because we wanted to, now that everyone's kind of had like their moments and like their stories, to move towards like Izzy. 'Cause
Yeah.
We've heard about her backstory and like her family, but now we're going to potentially actually go see it and explore it.
I'm excited for that.
And we had a couple ideas. We were trying to figure out how to like get a message to her that like she had to go home and visit her dad, but then she just brought him up that he knows about moon lilies, and it's like, oh well, then we
Yeah,
should go talk to her. And it's
perfect.
like, well, now they're gonna go there anyway, and it
That's-
came up organically. Which
That's
was
really
perfect.
funny.
Yeah, I think we were both at the time like, how would we make this work? And the fact that it just came up in conversation, I was like, well, we didn't have to do anything. That worked
Yeah.
out quite well.
Yeah, you're right, because she is the one who brought him up.
She
Yeah.
did.
It's really, really interesting that's, yeah, cool.
But that's where we got the idea is because she's told us that the reason they went to Water's route was because he went there
Mm-hmm.
and it was like examining the moondrop lily, and that's like his flower that he knows a lot about. And it was nice that she decided to bring it up instead of us.
Instead of us.
Having to railroad us into it.
Yeah.
Well-
We'll see how that plays into future seasons.
Mhm.
I'm sure it won't. I'm sure it won't come up
Yeah,
at all.
I doubt it. Well, that was it, guys. That was season 10. Unless there's anything else that we want to talk about, I
Trying to
think
think. We talked about Alaric. We talked about the falling, the fight on the floating head in astral space.
the rotting gods in space,
The rotting gods in
tentacle
space,
gods
yeah.
and things,
Yeah, Cthulhu-esque creatures just floating around in the astral plane.
as you do.
I would also like to say we finally got some answers to what was going on in Shiverswood,
Yeah.
that town,
Yeah, we
that
did.
nobody got a chance to really explore, which was that a previous wizard had kind of subjugated and ruled that town. It was taken off of maps because nobody wanted to go there, and people kind of like gave it up. Like, this isn't ours anymore.
Yeah.
And it was this guy worshiping Vatun and turning people into were-yetis. So, yeah.
A little bit of a parallel there with Alaric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Well, thanks for killing me a second
Again,
time.
yeah.
That was really more on
and
us.
thanks for making it easy for me.
How does it feel to kill a second, or not really a second PC, but kill a second time?
To kill you twice, I mean, it's like riding a bike. Once you get it done the first time, it's just like, yeah, I got this.
Once you have the taste of blood, it's really hard to stop,
Yeah.
I find.
Fate just wants Sweeney dead.
I just
apparently.
want to kill all my players. This is actually, no, I mean, like, we, to side note, and I've talked about this on the How We Roll articles on Partial Arc as well, but, like, after I killed my first party member, someone on, like, Tumblr sent me a message, and they're like, congratulations, I'm working for TPK. It's like, I don't want to kill any of them. That's not what I mean, like, if that's your game, then it's just a, players versus DM, and everyone knows that. That's fine. But, like, I wasn't going in trying to kill the barbarian. He just fell in a snake pit. Sorry. Sorry you rolled badly.
It's the dice at the end of the day in that scenario.
Yeah. But,
Burn your dice.
But yeah, once you do kill someone, it's like, oh my god, I could do that. I could just make you stop being alive. It's really easy.
Destroy that character sheet of yours.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
See you guys in season 11.
What?
Wow. No, I'm going to cut that.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode, and thanks again to our guest Jimmy Wong for joining us. He was fantastic, and you should definitely go check out his web series Feast of Fiction on YouTube. You can also follow him on Twitter at JFWong. Next week, we'll be back with the first part of Season 11, where we'll be joined by special guest Daniel Fernandez. Those of you who listen to the Roll to Seize podcast will have just heard his voice in the latest episode. Daniel is joining us twice a month for a special segment where he runs an adventure of the Dark Heresy RPG for myself and Andrew Dickinger. Daniel agreed to pop over from Roll to Seize and join us for a game on Friday Night Quests, and we have a really terrific adventure in store for you. So come back next Friday for the season premiere. Photos and character art can be found in the show notes on partialarc.com. And while you're there, why not check out some of our other podcasts, including Because Comics, where Mike Christensen and I talk about the weird and wacky stories of comic books. If you have any questions about the show, you can email us at FridayNightQuests@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, all under the handle Partial Arc. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm going to loot the body.
So, how much experience do we get?
Well, now we have a skeleton army, so that's pretty neat.